Hello YouTube, this is 3SP again. I'm coming at you today just dealing with some things that have been on my mind. One thing we see that's happening, and I've been talking about this a lot lately, about the different political and racial divides in the United States. And some of the arguments I've been hearing from people are saying that people of different races have genetic dispositions to act a certain way. I reject this idea because I really think if there's something dealing with violence or division, it's not a genetic problem. If someone's acting aggressively, it has nothing to do with a person's genes. It more has to do with the way they've been brought up culturally, and really overall it's a spiritual problem. We see when people today, mainly younger people, what we would like to call millennials, we see a lot of times they could be more aggressive and they can't, and a lot of people today can't really accept correction. They can't accept criticism. And every time they feel that they're being criticized in a certain way or just being criticized at all, it leads to violence. And we see these in different groups that claim to be protesting, but really they're rioting. One big example, and I'm not trying to pick on a specific group, but there's just a lot of good examples is with Antifa or Antifa, which means anti-fascists. And this group, they'll claim that they're going out to do peaceful protests. Then they go out, attack people with different views, call them Nazis, call them fascists, and at the same time, they'll go around burning down buildings. They'll crash windows out. They'll set them on fire. They'll attack cars. They'll attack people just because they have a different opinion. And again, there's other groups, but a lot of times it surrounds either college students or just in general, these groups that we call millennials. People that were born around the year 2000-ish. Basically all the ones that are coming up now, we could call them millennials. And one major thing I've noticed is different from our generation, which I was born in 84. So I grew up in the late 80s, early 90s. Well, no, I was a child through the early 80s. I grew up through the late 90s and going into the 2000s. And the difference that we had is, for one, we went outside and played. We actually did physical activity and we physically met people. We had super soaker fights in the summer. We even had sometimes shot fireworks at each other on the 4th of July. It was painful, but it was actually physical interaction. And a lot of times when we wanted to hang out with people, we would go to the mall. We would actually go to the mall and hang out. Even if we didn't have money, it was just cool to go to the mall and hang out with your friends. We did after-school activities. Again, it was just actually physically meeting people, having actual conversations with people, and sharing different ideas in person. And the big difference today is not only are people not meeting each other very often at all, unless they're at school or at work, but also they're just getting most of their interaction online. So they're also they're not really being raised by their parents, because nowadays not only are people not meeting each other as friends, but at the same time parents are not really directly dealing with their kids anymore. This is the first generation that hasn't been raised by their parents. They are literally being raised by Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Google. The internet is raising kids today. And one thing you know, as when you're on the internet, you have a certain level of anonymity, meaning you can troll people, and that's what we have nowadays, is a lot of trolls. They're trolling people's videos, they're trolling people's opinions on the internet, because they got hide behind the veil of a username. They got hide behind the veil of Facebook. And this is a problem because, again, when I was coming up, if you had ideas, you could express them to one another. And you could actually take criticism in person. But when you look up something on Google, when you search something in Facebook, or you subscribe to these different groups online, what happens is that you're limiting the opposing opinion that you would normally get. When you look something up in Google or Facebook, you'll watch that video or you'll read that material. Then the next time you log on to a YouTube or Google, you'll get more suggestions dealing with that certain topic. And most of the time, you don't get an opposing view. So in my opinion, Google and Facebook, YouTube, it makes you not only sort of a specialist in a subject, but it makes you an extremist in a subject, to where the more times you get information on this topic, you get less information on the opposing view. And therefore, all it does is create a, what do they call that? An opinion bias, or confirmation bias is what it's called, where you were having a little bit itching suspicion or more of a bias toward a certain subject that you were looking at. And when you find information on it, it makes you feel like you're right, even if that topic is totally wrong. Because there's information confirming what you believe, it makes you feel more like you're right. So when you have a YouTube feed that's giving you suggestive videos that totally confirm your bias, it makes you feel like other people are unintelligent, or that they're unreasonable, which is just totally not true. They just have a different view. And when they type in things confirming their view, they just keep getting suggestive videos and suggested websites and suggested information confirming their bias. And this is really how extremists are made, is because you're only getting information that confirms your belief. You don't get any information outside of what you believe. And this could go as little as small as you just figuring out this is what you want to do in life, this is a career you want to make. As far as dealing with a certain topic, you might become a teacher or professor that teaches this certain topic. But it can go as far as to what you see radicalizing people. I don't want to go too far into saying groups, because again, that will go against certain people's confirmation bias. Therefore, they would shut me out from what I'm saying, and even go as far as to bring on violence toward me if someone met me in real life. Like we see in politics, where you have the far left and the far right. We've never been this far left or far right, this many people or this percentage of the population going as far left or far right, ever, except maybe around the time we had the Civil War. And that's again because we have YouTube and Google and social media feeding into our confirmation bias. And we're only coming in contact with people online that agree with our opinions. And anytime someone disagrees, we call them a troll. Or even when we do get trolls, we don't know how to receive criticism, because again, this is the first generation that has not been raised by their parents, but have been raised by the internet. So, excuse me. The solution I would give, number one, is basically look up information or look up opposing viewpoints to what you believe in. As we're in our own groups, our own subscribed groups that agree with our opinion, we shut out, and even to the point of wanting to attack someone who don't believe us, it's because we don't have criticism. We weren't corrected by our parents because we're always on our mobile devices or we're always on the internet. So we don't know how to take correction. We don't know how to take opposing views. And a lot of times that's why you hear people on the right or the left call the other one crying babies, is because it literally is. You're having a temper tantrum. And the temper tantrums of an adult is different than the temper tantrum of a child. When a child has a temper tantrum, they fall on the ground, they kick and scream, and they cry. But as an adult, it makes you more aggressive and more angry. You might be more prone to cover up your face and actually take it out on people that don't believe in what you believe in, but also destroy property, destroy private properties, destroy personal property, and destroy public property. And you have no right to do that, because there's other ways to get your voice heard. And this is a part of what's making the internet toxic, but almost like how we see in the Matrix, the movie Matrix as an example. Those people were living these virtual lives. Then when they came out to the real world, they experienced, there's a whole reality they're not used to. And when Agent Smith came out into the real world, he was reproducing, he was going after people and killing them in the real world. We need to learn how to interact as humans in the real world. You can have your personal beliefs. We still have freedom of speech, but what's happening is not only is our freedom of speech being challenged, but our freedom of thought is being challenged. Google knows how to keep track of what your thought patterns are, so they know how to group you with people that think like you do. We need to get out of this cyber bubble, come into the real world, and stop being so offended by opposite views. And also stop being so evasive. Stop attacking other people for not believing what you believe in. Don't call someone a name because they don't believe in what you believe in. You could call someone a leftist. You could call someone far right, or as they're calling them now, alt-right. But also they're calling them fascists. Calling someone a fascist or a Nazi or equating to someone as Hitler because they don't believe in your views, because you're a crybaby. There's crybabies on the left and right. We need to come as humans and understand that everybody's a human. And that's another argument I'm hearing all the time on the internet, that when someone in the far right, they'll call someone in the far left subhuman. And the left does the same thing. They'll call someone in the right, or the alt-right, or the far right, they will call them subhumans. This is rhetoric. These are the same words that, again, the Nazis used to basically justify the murder of the Jewish people. We have to come to the conclusion that we're all human beings and learn how to handle each other as human beings. If you're religious, or even if you're not a religious type person, there's something that Christians have, which is something that Jesus taught, called the Golden Rule. Do unto others how you want to be done to. Treat others how you want to be treated. If you want your opinion heard, it's a great idea to hear someone else's opinion. If you're a type of person who can't really handle your feelings being hurt, then don't purposely go around defending other people. And also, I believe that saying exists in Matthew chapter 5 in the Beatitudes. But what also happens in the Beatitudes is that it says, blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. If you want to inherit something, if you want to gain success in life, you have to be likable by people. So being meek, meaning being gentle with people, being likable with people, will make you actually inherit things in this earth. You'll be able to accomplish goals in this earth because you're making yourself more likable to other people. There's no way you could be a salesperson or sell someone on an idea unless you show yourself to be likable and at least give the appearance that you like the person that you're talking to. I was in sales for a little while, and it was a short period. But one thing we could do is we would call it mirroring. If you saw a person sit a certain way, like if they lean to their right, well, you lean to your left to mirror them, because it makes you appear to them to be more on their same level. And one thing you could do is also something called suggestive sales. And suggestive sales is not only trying to sell someone with the words, but then, like, if you say, this is a really good product, and you're shaking your head up and down, when you shake your head up and down, the person you're talking to will also start shaking their head. And when you get into this movement where you're doing a gesture of the body that means yes, it subconsciously plants the thought in your head of yes or agreement. So if you want to reach out to someone who don't totally agree with you, for one, you have to be likable, but then you have to know how to present yourself in a way where you say, but this is a really good idea. It would really help for you just to try to see my viewpoint. And I'm suggestive selling that person my view. Another thing is that it's very important to be a peacemaker. Even if someone doesn't believe what you believe in, you have to be a peacemaker. And again, even in that same chapter, I believe it's Matthew chapter 5, the Bible says, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God." And if there's one thing you know about God, the Bible says that the earth is the Lord's and everything therein. The whole earth is available to you if you can be identified as a child of God. And you can be identified as a child of God if you're a peacemaker. So, big thing, just recapping, be peacemakers. People will see the godliness in you, even if you don't believe in God. There's something about you that's attractive. Also, be more of a people person. Be likable. That's the best way to get through to someone. Don't call them a Nazi. Don't call them a fascist. Because all you're doing is what the Nazis and fascists do by attacking people that don't agree with you. Be more approachable. Smile more. Not only does it help the way you feel about yourself, I don't know how true it is where they say in scientific studies, if you're feeling sad but you start smiling more, you start feeling generally more happy. But not only that, it's hard to hate someone that's being friendly to you. If you just smile at someone, even if you feel like they're unlikable, you'll start feeling better toward them, but then they'll start feeling better toward you. Just smiling, just showing yourself to be friendly. That could be a big solution just to racism itself, or political divide, or class divide. Being more approachable, being more likable, smiling toward one another, having an open mind and open conversation in person, not just on the internet, but in person. That's where we need to go. We need to talk more in person. If there's nothing else I could stress, is to have these likable qualities, but to approach each other in real life. Have real life conversations with the goal that you won't have physical conflict, or it's okay to have heated debates. Debates are a way to get the truth in a situation, or to find middle ground, is to have a debate, but to do it in a peaceful way, and to come to the mindset that you generally like your opposition as a person. Like, I'm going to find ways to like you. The more I talk with you, the more things I'm going to find in common with you. And if you find things in common with the person that you claim to be your enemy, or to claim to be the opposite view of you, you'll find more things in common. And the more things that you start having in common, the differences will start melting away, because you're finding things in common. Okay, I might talk to a person that I totally ideologically disagree with, but I find out that, okay, they like hip-hop. I like hip-hop. Well, now my difference with them just became smaller. I might talk with someone that I see as an opponent of mine, but they like a certain brand of clothes as me, or a certain brand of shoes. That difference just got smaller. I like jazz music. I might find my opposition that likes jazz music. I like paintings. I like classical music. People that generally disagree with me ideologically find these things that we have in common. Then our differences just got smaller. And instead of having an enemy, I might have gained a friend. I gained a friend who has a different viewpoint as me, but I'll help him out. If he's in need, I can give him a little bit of money I have to get him by, and vice versa. I have just made a friend because I have more things in common than I do not in common with this person. And again, my approach is to generally that I love people. I love people. And I love hearing different viewpoints from people. But the internet is becoming the Wild West and becoming a violent place. That's why I myself crave more personal interaction with people. So, again, I encourage you. Try to go out and make friends with people that claim themselves to be your enemy. Be more agreeable with them. If you seem that if you see their viewpoint, they're more open to see your viewpoint. Therefore, you open the way of discussion. And then you find common ground. Your differences become smaller. And you've created friends. Friends that you normally wouldn't have in different people. Racism can end just from having different discussions till you find things in common. We're all humans. We all have feelings. We all have a need to have income to provide for our families, to eat, to have our utilities on, to be comfortable in life to a certain extent. And all those things in common can melt away racism, can melt away the political divide, to restore us back to a point where we don't say that we hate someone of a certain group. Hate is a very strong word, and it's growing quickly. The Bible said in the last days, this is what Christ said right before, as a sign of his return. He said, in the last days, the love of many will grow cold. Then nation will rise against nation, and kingdom will rise against kingdom. So the love of many, meaning the multitudes of people, are going to grow cold. We used to at least have a certain level of love for our fellow man, where if we see someone's car on the side of the highway and it's smoking and they're under their hood, we would stop and we would go see if there's a way we could help them. That's not happening as much anymore, especially when we see people of different races. We just won't do it, and that's wrong. And when the Bible says that nation shall rise against nation, that word nation in the Greek is translated from the word ethnos, which is where we get our word ethnicity, which directly means the word race. We're in that time of days, in the point of time now, where nations rising against nation, and then kingdom against kingdom. The United States against Russia, Russia against the United States against China or North Korea. And it's all coming up to what's going on in the world. And to tell you the truth, I think it's all man-made. I think man is the main cause. The media that we have is the main cause of this division. And going back to the things I was talking about, Google, Facebook, social media, it polarizes you into being in these different groups. Go out and make friends, not enemies. And this is 3SP signing out.